welcome to the deep dive. You sent us a really fascinating collection of material all centered around sleep.
Yeah, it's quite a range.
It really is, and it underscores how this one kind of fundamental part of life touches everything, from our personal health right up to how society functions.
Absolutely.
So our goal today, our mission, if you like, is to cut through all that and pull out the most critical and sometimes really surprising insights about sleep from these sources.
Make it clear, relevant.
Exactly. And maybe even a little shocking, we'll be looking at why sleep is just so essential, what our brains are actually doing during those different sleep stages.
Including dreaming, of course.
Right, the whole mystery of dreams and how sleep patterns change across our lives. The pretty extensive damage that not getting enough sleep does to us mentally and physically.
And the bigger picture, the societal ripple effects.
Yeah. So let me just start with a couple of questions that really jumped out. Were you aware that something like 2/3 of adults in developed nations just aren't getting enough sleep?
It's a huge number.
And would it shock you to learn just how many serious health problems are directly linked to this chronic lack of rest? Okay, let's dive in.
Well, what immediately strikes me is just the sheer scale of this problem that your sources highlight. It's not, just a few people feeling tired.
Right.
The fact that 2/3 of adults in developed nations are chronically undersleeping. Well, organizations like the WHO are calling it a major public health issue.
Yeah,
And the evidence laid out here clearly shows why we need to take it really seriously.
absolutely. We're not just talking about feeling a bit, sluggish in the morning. The research points to some really significant health risks.
Definitely.
I mean, one statistic that really grabbed me was that routinely sleeping less than, say, 6 or 7 hours, it dramatically weakens your immune system, more than doubling your risk of cancer.
That's a pretty stark warning, isn't it?
It is.
And if you look bigger picture, the material stresses this isn't like an isolated finding. Insufficient sleep is also flagged as a key factor in developing Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's.
And even shorter periods of cutting back on sleep, maybe just a week of getting slightly less than you need, that can disrupt blood sugar levels enough that you could be classed as pre-diabetic.
Pre-diabetic in a week. That's fast.
It is.
And it doesn't stop there, does it? Our heart and blood vessels take a real hit, too.
They do. We're talking an increased chance of blocked, brittle coronary arteries.
Which leads to?
Well, significantly higher risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart failure. It's like this cascade of negative health outcomes, all stemming from something we often treat as, optional.
Yeah, cutting sleep short suddenly seems like a really bad trade-off.
This really brings up a fundamental question about, our societal values and maybe our individual priorities too. The sources also link disrupted sleep to major psychiatric conditions, depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts.
Right.
And maybe the most direct, sobering consequence is the link between sleeping less and living shorter lives. That old saying, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, the science unfortunately suggests that living like that just brings the dead part closer. And the life you do have is likely to be less healthy, less fulfilling.
It really does make those late nights seem less appealing, doesn't it? And it's not just about individuals.
No.
The WHO declaring a sleep loss epidemic in industrialized nations
Yeah.
that points to a much wider societal problem.
Exactly. The research correlates the significant drop in average sleep time over the last century in places like the US, UK, Japan, Western Europe, with this alarming rise in physical and mental health issues.
The connection seems pretty undeniable when you put it like that.
Indeed. And the fallout goes beyond long-term health. The sources highlight immediate dangers too, like drowsy driving.
Oh, yeah, that's...
The statistic that fatigue-related errors cause 1 traffic death every hour in the U.S.
Every hour.
Yeah, and that it actually exceeds accidents caused by alcohol and drugs combined?
No.
That's genuinely shocking.
It really is. It underscores that being sleep-deprived isn't just a personal risk. It's a serious public safety issue.
Absolutely.
It certainly gives me pause about, getting behind the wheel if I'm not feeling 100%. Now, the author of a lot of this research, clearly someone deeply invested, mentions decades of work, Harvard, UC Berkeley, all driven by that core question. Why do we actually need to sleep?
Right, the fundamental why.
So let's dig into that. From a scientific standpoint, how do we even define sleep? It seems like it's got to be more than just closing your eyes.
The sources give a pretty good working definition. First, there's that obvious lack of communication, less response to what's going on around you.
Okay.
Second, you lose postural control, your muscles relax, you slump or lie down. Third, your reaction to outside things is way down. It takes more to wake someone up.
Right.
Fourth, crucially, sleep is readily reversible, unlike, say, a coma.
That makes sense.
And finally, it follows a cycle governed by our internal 24-hour clock, the circadian rhythm.
Okay, that clarifies things. It's a complex state, lots of biological and behavioral changes.
Yeah.
What about our internal sense of time? It always feels so warped when you sleep.
That's a fascinating part. The sources explain that during sleep, we basically lose conscious awareness of time passing. It's described as a chronometric void.
A void? Interesting.
Yeah, think about waking up from a nap. Often the very first thing you do is check the clock, right? To reorient yourself.
Totally.
Our ability to consciously track time just seems to vanish while we sleep. And it's that gap in our timeline that confirms to us, I was asleep.
It's like a nightly mini vacation from the clock. Now, the discovery of NREM and REM sleep, that seems fundamental, right? The material mentions Azarinsky and Kleitman.
Absolutely. Their work in the 50s was truly revolutionary. They noticed these periods of quiet sleep, still eyes, slow, regular brainwaves.
In REMs.
Right. Interspersed with periods where the eyes were darting around rapidly and the brain activity looked much more, well, erratic.
REM.
Exactly. Kleitman even roped his infant daughter into the studies to check if it happened across different ages.
Ah, dedication.
It led to this crucial understanding. Sleep isn't just one uniform state. It cycles through these very distinct phases. Non-rapid eye movement, NREM, and rapid eye movement, REM.
And to help us grasp the brainwave activity, the source uses this really great analogy, a football stadium and a microphone. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, it's a good one. Imagine thousands of people in a stadium, right? Each person is like a single brain cell.
Okay.
When everyone's awake, doing their own thing, thinking their own thoughts, their individual chatter is all over the place. Desynchronized, it's just a cacophony.
Noise.
Right. So if you put a microphone that's your EEG electrode on the scalp above the stadium, the overall sound you pick up is just this disorganized mix, no clear rhythm. That's like our waking brain state.
Got it. So what happens to the stadium when we drift into NREM sleep?
Well, during NREM, especially the deeper stages, things change dramatically. Huge numbers of brain cells start firing together in unison.
Yeah.
Synchronized. So in our stadium analogy, it'd be like massive sections of the crowd all chanting the same thing at the same time, but slowly, rhythmically.
A slow chant.
Exactly. The microphone would then pick up these powerful, slow, rhythmic chants. Those are the slow brain waves of deep sleep.
Makes sense.
And the material also mentions sleep spindles, particularly in lighter NREM sleep. Think of those as little bursts of activity, like tiny gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers.
Yeah, they briefly raise your awareness threshold, just enough to filter out minor noises, stopping you from waking up unnecessarily. The more spindles you have, the better you are at sleeping through stuff.
Wow, so our brain is actively protecting our sleep. And where do these deep sleep waves come from, and how do they spread?
They mainly originate right up front, in the frontal lobes, just behind your forehead.
Oh.
And they don't just spread randomly. They tend to travel in a specific direction, moving from the front towards the back of the brain. And their strength kind of fades as they travel, like sound waves.
It really challenges that old idea that deep sleep is just the brain switching off. It sounds like a lot of organized activity.
Precisely. The source really emphasizes this. During deep NREM, the brain is far from idle. It's this incredible display of neural cooperation, thousands of cells synchronizing in these powerful waves, highly active, highly structured.
And then there's REM sleep, the dreaming stage.
Yeah.
What's the brain doing then?
REM sleep is where it gets, well, really intriguing. The brainwave activity during REM looks surprisingly similar to when we're wide awake and alert.
Really? Like wakefulness?
Almost identical in some ways. In fact, MRI studies show some brain regions can be more active during REM than when we're awake.
Wow.
So while our body is basically paralyzed, thankfully during REM, our brain is incredibly busy.
Like the brain's running a full-on virtual reality show while the body's safely offline. Now, thinking about evolution, the source looks at when sleep might have started and how it differs across species.
Yeah, evolutionary biology gives a really compelling view. NREM sleep seems ancient, found in pretty much every species studied. But REM sleep looks like a more recent development, mainly in birds and mammals, suggesting it evolved for functions NREM alone couldn't handle.
So REM came later.
That was the thinking. Though, interestingly, there's a very recent finding. Hints of a proto-REM sleep in a lizard species.
A lizard.
Yeah, which could push the origins of REM way, way back. It's still early days on that research, though.
Fascinating. So sleep isn't one size fits all in the animal world. And what happens when we, pull an all-nighter? Does our brain prioritize certain sleep types when we finally crash?
Yes, it does. After significant sleep deprivation, when you finally get to sleep, the brain initially goes hard for deep NREM sleep.
Catches up on the deep stuff first.
Seems like it. Like it's trying to get the most physically and mentally restorative part done first. But then over the next few recovery nights, the priority shifts towards catching up on REM sleep.
Interesting. So it tries to get both back.
It tries, but it highlights that both NREM and REM are vital. And crucially, you never fully recover all the sleep you lost. That debt lingers.
That's a really key point. You can't just wipe the slate clean with one long sleep. The source mentions this amazing resilience in white-crowned sparrows during migration. What's up with them?
Oh, the sparrows are extraordinary. During their long migratory flights, they show this incredible, though temporary, ability to function on very little or even no sleep, far beyond what humans could manage.
Wow.
It's a real testament to how sleep adapts to meet specific biological needs in different species, sometimes in really surprising ways.
It certainly puts our struggles after one late night into perspective. Now let's talk about how humans maybe should be sleeping, based on our evolution in different cultures. Monophasic versus biphasic patterns.
Right, this challenges our modern norms. Most of us in industrialized societies have this monophasic pattern, one long sleep block at night.
Yeah, that's normal for us.
But if you look at cultures less tied to artificial light, like some hunter-gatherer groups, you often see a biphasic pattern. A longer sleep at night, plus a shorter nap or rest in the afternoon.
The siesta.
Exactly. And there's even historical evidence suggesting that biphasic sleep, a first sleep and second sleep at night, with a couple of hours awake in between, was pretty common in Western Europe until fairly recently.
So our current pattern might not be the natural human default.
Yeah.
That afternoon slump suddenly feels biologically justified. Okay, let's shift focus. Why should we prioritize sleep? The source lists a huge array of brain benefits.
Oh, yeah. The author basically calls sleep a revolutionary new treatment, boosting memory, creativity, attractiveness, helping us stay lean, protecting against disease, enhancing mood. The list goes on.
Wow.
And its role in memory is probably one of the best studied areas. Sleep is vital before learning, prepping the brain.
Okay, let's break that down. How does sleeping before learning help?
Sleeping well, or even just napping beforehand, it sort of refreshes the brain's capacity to take in new stuff, clears the decks, makes space for new memories.
Like defragging a hard drive?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Studies show people who nap before memorizing things often do significantly better than those who stay awake.
Interesting. What kind of sleep is key for that?
It seems to be mainly the lighter stage 2 NREM sleep, along with those sleep spindles we talked about, those little bursts of activity.
The gatekeepers.
Right. The more spindles you get during that pre-learning nap, the bigger the boost to your learning ability afterwards.
So pulling an all-nighter to study is probably shooting yourself in the foot then.
Pretty much, yeah.
What about sleep after we've learned something? How does that help lock it in?
Ah, that's where deep NREM sleep comes in. The sleep you get after learning is absolutely critical for memory consolidation, making those new memories stick.
Consolidation, okay.
Research shows a direct link. The more deep NREM sleep you get after learning something, the more of it you'll remember the next day.
So it's actively saving the files.
Exactly. It's like sleep actively transfers memories from a temporary holding area, like the hippocampus, to more permanent storage sites in the brain. Even short naps with enough NREM can give a real memory boost.
It's like essential overnight brain maintenance. The source even mentions that research with rocking beds.
Oh, that's cool, yeah. Swiss researchers found that gently rocking a bed during NREM sleep can actually deepen sleep, improve the quality of those slow waves,
Really?
and significantly boost the number of sleep spindles. While they didn't directly test memory in that specific study, those brain activity changes strongly suggest it could enhance memory.
That's kind of nice too.
Doesn't it? A subtle external nudge that seems to amplify the brain's own processes.
And this idea of manipulating memories during sleep,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like sci-fi, but the source hints it might be possible eventually.
It's definitely cutting-edge stuff, huge potential, but also, some pretty big ethical questions attached.
For sure.
If we could selectively strengthen or weaken memories while you sleep, well, the implications are massive.
On a related note, sleep also helps us forget stuff, right? Which makes sense. We can't keep everything.
Exactly. Forgetting is vital. It declutters the mind, helps us find the important stuff easier. Like cleaning up your computer's hard drive. Sleep helps prune away the irrelevant details, letting us hang on to what matters, making the whole memory system more efficient.
And it's not just facts and figures. Sleep is crucial for locking in motor skills, too.
Absolutely. Turning practice into proper skill. Studies consistently show that a good night's sleep after learning a new motor task, playing piano, a tennis serve, whatever,
Yeah.
leads to significant jumps in both speed and accuracy the next day.
Without any more practice.
Without any more conscious
Yeah.
practice, yeah. And the key stage here seems to be stage 2 and REM sleep again, especially later in the night, along with those beneficial spindles. It's like your brain is rehearsing and refining movements while you're out.
So sleep on it works for physical skills, too. Now, the flip side, the damage from not sleeping. The Dingus study on partial sleep deprivation sounds pretty scary.
It really is a stark illustration. It found that getting just 4 hours of sleep for 6 nights straight.
Which some people do regularly.
Right. It resulted in the same level of cognitive impairment as being awake for a full 24 hours straight. And by day 11 on that schedule, performance was as bad as someone awake for 48 hours.
That's severe impairment.
It is. And what's really worrying is that even after several nights of recovery sleep, their performance didn't fully bounce back to baseline. Sleep debt is real, it adds up, and it has lasting negative effects.
That really busts the myth that you can just catch up on the weekend. Seems our brains don't work like that.
Doesn't look like it.
And the emotional toll of sleep deprivation is significant too, right?
Oh, definitely. When you're sleep deprived, the amygdala, your brain's emotional reaction center, especially for negative stuff, becomes hyper-reactive.
More reactive.
Yeah. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part that's supposed to regulate those emotions and make rational decisions, gets impaired.
So more emotion, less control.
Exactly. It leads to more irritability, mood swings, less ability to handle stress. Your whole emotional balance gets thrown off.
That explains why we feel so much more on edge and snappy when tired. And the negative impact on learning just continues when we're sleep deprived. Memories formed then are weaker.
That's right. Sleep is crucial for strengthening the synaptic connections that form memories. Without enough sleep, that process gets messed up.
The connections aren't as strong.
Right. It's harder to encode new memories properly, harder to consolidate them. Even the production of proteins needed for memory building is hampered.
Which makes cramming for exams even more pointless.
Pretty much. You sacrifice the very thing, sleep, that helps you actually learn and remember the material. It's self-defeating.
Totally. And finally, on the brain. This link between sleep and Alzheimer's. The amyloid buildup thing.
Yeah, the research there is getting stronger. It seems there's a connection between the buildup of amyloid plaques, a hallmark of Alzheimer's, and disruptions in deep sleep quality.
Okay.
And this messed up deep sleep seems to hinder the brain's natural cleaning process that clears out these amyloid deposits during the night.
So it's a vicious cycle. Bad sleep leads to more amyloid leads to worse sleep.
That seems to be the potential cycle, yeah. Impaired deep sleep might contribute to further amyloid buildup and cognitive decline. So while good sleep isn't a magic bullet against Alzheimer's,
Right.
prioritizing healthy sleep throughout life is looking more and more like a really significant factor in potentially reducing your risk.
Okay, so it's clear sleep is fundamental for a healthy brain. But the benefits don't stop there. The source says sleep is just as critical for our bodies overall.
Absolutely. The author even refines an earlier point, saying sleep isn't just one pillar of health with diet and exercise.
Yeah.
It's the foundation they rest on. Every major system, cardiovascular, metabolic, immune, reproductive, takes a hit when we skimp on sleep. Nothing is immune.
Let's start with the heart then. The link there seems really strong.
It is. Numerous big studies consistently show a clear, concerning link. The less you sleep, the higher your risk of heart problems and even dying prematurely from them. Shorter sleep is tied to significantly increased risk of coronary heart disease, heart attacks, overall mortality. And this holds even when you account for other factors like smoking or lack of exercise. Sleep loss itself attacks the heart.
How does it do that? What's the mechanism?
A big part is the overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response.
Okay.
When you're chronically sleep deprived, that system stays ramped up, which leads to higher heart rate, higher blood pressure, more inflammation, all damaging to your blood vessels and heart over time.
Right. Moving to metabolism, Sleep loss messes with blood sugar and diabetes risk.
Yeah, research shows insufficient sleep messes with how your body handles glucose. It reduces insulin sensitivity.
Meaning your cells don't take up sugar properly.
Exactly, which increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
And it also affects our hunger hormones, contributing to weight gain.
Totally. Sleep deprivation throws the balance of key hormones like leptin, which signals fullness, and ghrelin, which signals hunger, completely out of whack.
So you feel hungrier and less full.
Yes. Plus, it increases endocannabinoids in your brain, similar to chemicals in cannabis, which amps up cravings for unhealthy foods.
Oh, wow. So you're driven to eat more, especially junk food.
Precisely. You crave sweets, carbs, salty snacks, and that myth about burning extra calories by staying awake, it's tiny compared to the extra calories you consume because of these hormonal shifts.
So skimping on sleep is actually more likely to make you gain weight.
Much more likely.
What about the reproductive system? I was surprised to see that connection.
Yeah, studies have shown even relatively short sleep restriction in young, healthy men, like a week of just 5 hours a night,
Yeah.
can cause a significant drop in testosterone levels, comparable to aging 10 or 15 years hormonally.
That's a huge drop.
It highlights how important sleep is for maintaining reproductive health, too.
And maybe most critically, the immune system. Sleep is vital there, right?
The source had some strong evidence.
The evidence is really compelling. Studies show chronically sleep-deprived people are way more susceptible to things like the common cold.
Makes sense.
And their response to vaccines, flu shots, hepatitis vaccines, is weaker. The antibody response is blunted.
Even after they catch up on sleep later.
Yeah, the effect can linger, meaning less protection from the vaccine. It really underscores how crucial sleep is for the immune system to work properly.
And the link between poor sleep and increased cancer risk is also deeply concerning.
Yes. Large studies consistently link shorter sleep with a higher risk for several types of cancer.
Why is that thought to happen?
A likely factor is the chronic low-grade inflammation caused by that constantly overactive sympathetic nervous system in sleep-deprived people.
Ah, the inflammation again.
Right. The evidence is getting so strong that the WHO has actually classified nighttime shift work, which obviously disrupts sleep,
Right.
as probable carcinogen.
Probable carcinogen, that's
Yeah.
significant. Finally, on the body, the impact on our DNA, telomeres.
Yeah, telomeres are like the protective caps on the ends of our DNA strands. Think of the plastic tips on shoelaces. They protect our genetic material. Research links chronic sleep loss to damage and shortening of these telomeres, and the damage looks similar to what happens with natural aging.
So poor sleep might actually speed up aging at a cellular level.
That's what the evidence suggests, yeah.
Mm.
It's pretty sobering.
It really is. Realizing how sleep impacts us right down to our DNA. Okay, let's shift gears into the fascinating, mysterious world of dreams. The source moves from Freud to neuroscience.
Yeah, brain imaging tech has totally changed the game. Freud's wish fulfillment idea was big for a long time, but now neuroscience lets us test hypotheses about what's actually happening in the brain during dreams.
And what is
Yeah.
happening? What do the scans show during dreaming?
Well, during REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming happens, lots of brain areas light up. Your visuospatial regions, seeing things, understanding space, the motor cortex, involved in movement planning, the hippocampus area, crucial for personal memories, and the deep emotional centers, amygdala, cingulate cortex, they go into overdrive.
Overdrive.
Yeah, activity in those emotional parts can be even higher during REM than when you're awake.
Like a hyper-real emotional simulation in our heads? The source mentions dream reading using MRI. That sounds amazing.
It is pretty remarkable. Scientists have used sophisticated MRI and analysis to predict, with pretty decent accuracy, what someone's dreaming about based just on their brain activity patterns.
Predicting content.
Yeah.
Like objects or actions.
Yeah, identifying specific objects, people, even actions happening in the dream narrative, just from the brain scans. It's a big step towards understanding the subjective experience.
Wow. Beyond just what we dream, what about the function? Cartwright's research on dreams as overnight therapy.
Right, Cartwright's work suggests dreaming, especially about emotional events from our day, might help us process and resolve emotional distress.
How did she find that?
She studied people going through tough times, like divorce, and found a link between the emotional themes in their dreams and how well they recovered from depression and anxiety symptoms later on.
So dreams might be helping us work through stuff emotionally.
Seems like they provide a kind of safe space for that processing, yeah.
The source also links REM sleep and PTSD, and that surprising finding about the drug prazosin.
Yeah, people with PTSD often have terrible recurring nightmares. Dr. Murray Raskin unexpectedly found that prazosin, normally a blood pressure drug,
Yeah.
actually significantly reduced the frequency and intensity of these nightmares for many PTSD patients.
Why would a blood pressure drug do that?
It suggests a link between the neurochemical systems involved in REM sleep, maybe adrenaline-related pathways, and how we process and consolidate traumatic memories.
Interesting. And getting good REM sleep helps us read emotions better when we're awake.
Yes, that's right. Better REM quality seems to tune up our ability to accurately decode facial expressions and emotional cues in others.
And the opposite is true too. Less REM, worse emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Sleep deprivation, especially losing REM, can impair that crucial social skill. Makes it harder to figure out how people around you are feeling.
Beyond emotions, REM and dreaming seem key for creativity and problem solving too. The source gives some famous examples.
That's a really cool aspect. REM seems to foster this unique kind of creative thinking by connecting ideas and memories in new, sometimes unexpected ways.
Leading to those aha moments.
Exactly, helping solve problems we're stuck on when awake. The source mentions Mendeleev dreaming the periodic table,
Right.
Keith Richards dreaming the riff for satisfaction, Mary Shelley getting the idea for Frankenstein in a dream. All classic examples.
It's like the dreaming brain uses a different, more associative logic.
Yeah.
Matthew Stickgold's research on this sounds key.
Stickgold's work suggests the REM brain favors connecting distantly related concepts, not just the obvious links we make when awake.
Which opens up possibilities.
Right, allows for broader exploration, leading to those creative breakthroughs. His maze experiment was neat naps with dream sleep, helped people find hidden shortcuts in a maze they were stuck on before. He also talks about relational memory processing. REM helps us link separate memories to grasp underlying rules or make novel inferences.
So a good night's REM isn't just rest, it's active creative work. And lucid dreaming gets a mention too.
Briefly, yeah, lucid dreaming, being aware you're dreaming while it's happening, sometimes even controlling it.
Yeah.
It's another fascinating area. MRI studies have even tracked brain activity during willed actions within a lucid dream. Gives more clues about consciousness and dream states.
Like unlocking another level of awareness. Okay, let's turn to the less pleasant side, sleep disorders.
Right, they're common and can really impact life quality. The source starts with sleepwalking, somnambulism, mentions the extreme Kenneth Parks case.
To show how complex behaviors can happen while asleep.
Exactly, often with zero awareness or memory afterwards.
Then there's insomnia, which affects loads of people. What defines chronic insomnia?
It's persistent trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or just feeling unrestored by sleep, even if you have the chance to sleep.
How persistent?
At least 3 nights a week for 3 months or more. It affects millions, more common in women and some ethnic groups.
Is it always caused by something else?
Sometimes it's secondary due to other medical issues or medications, but primary insomnia often stems from psychological factors like worry, anxiety, linked to that overactive sympathetic nervous system again.
Fight or flight keeping you awake.
Pretty much. And physiologically, people with chronic insomnia often have shallower, deep NREM sleep and more fragmented REM. So the sleep they do get isn't refreshing, leading to daytime problems.
So it's not just less sleep, it's worse quality sleep. What about narcolepsy?
Narcolepsy is neurological. The main symptom is excessive daytime sleepiness, often irresistible sleep attacks.
Right.
Many also have cataplexy, sudden muscle weakness triggered by strong emotions, like laughter.
That sounds really debilitating.
It can be. Other symptoms can include sleep paralysis and vivid hallucinations while falling asleep or waking up.
What causes it?
It's neurological, a loss of brain cells that produce orexin. Orexin is key for keeping us awake and stable. Without enough, the sleep-wake switch becomes unstable.
Okay. And then there's fatal familial insomnia. It sounds terrifying.
It is extremely rare, inherited prion disease. Causes progressive, unstoppable insomnia, ultimately fatal.
Prion disease, like mad cow.
Similar mechanism, yeah. Misfolded proteins accumulate, especially in the thalamus, crucial for sleep. And tragically, animal studies show total sleep deprivation, even without disease, is fatal. Possibly because the immune system loses control over gut bacteria.
It really drives home how fundamentally vital sleep is for survival itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the source then tackles some common misconceptions and the wider societal impact.
Right. One claim it addresses is that humans only need about 6.75 hours, based on studies of some pre-industrial tribes.
Yeah, you hear that sometimes.
But the author challenges that. Argues need should be about what ensures optimal health, function, longevity, and points out those tribes often have shorter lifespans despite being active. Just because a group averages X amount doesn't mean it's optimal.
Good point. And artificial light, especially blue light from devices, that's a
Oh.
big disruptor.
Huge. The blue light from LED screens, phones, tablets, computers is really effective at suppressing melatonin.
The sleep hormone.
Right. Using devices close to bedtime measurably lowers melatonin, pushes sleep onset later, makes it harder to fall asleep when you want to.
So that evening scroll is actively fighting your sleep. What about alcohol as a nightcap?
Bad idea, according to the source. While it might make you drowsy initially,
Yeah.
it actually fragments sleep later in the night and heavily suppresses REM sleep. This is due to byproducts, aldehydes, as your body metabolizes it.
So the sleep isn't restorative.
Not really, and it can mess with memory consolidation for days after drinking, even if you think you slept okay right after learning something.
So that nightly drink might be counterproductive for sleep quality. The source also gives practical tips for the sleep environment, focusing on temperature.
Yeah. Our bodies naturally cool down to prepare for sleep, releasing heat from hands, feet, head.
So a cool room helps.
Definitely. Around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18.3 Celsius, is ideal for most. And interestingly, selectively warming your hands and feet, warm socks, hot water bottle can actually help your core temp drop faster, speeding up sleep onset.
That's a great tip. Warm socks tonight, maybe? It also mentions behavioral tricks for waking up.
Briefly, yeah. Things like reward-based alarms, gradual light, sometimes even startling alarms or ones that, shred money if you don't get up, using behavioral psych principles.
Huh. Now, prescription sleeping pills. The source seems quite critical.
It argues that current pills don't really provide natural restorative sleep. They can actually harm long-term health linked to higher mortality, infection risk.
And they mess with memory.
Yeah, can interfere with that crucial memory consolidation during sleep. The author strongly pushes for cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia CBTI
As a better alternative.
as a more effective, sustainable non-drug treatment. It addresses the underlying behaviors and thoughts driving the insomnia rather than just sedating you.
Makes sense. And physical activity helps sleep.
Big time. It's a two-way street. Regular exercise generally improves sleep quality and duration, and good sleep gives you energy for exercise. Being sedentary often goes hand in hand with poor sleep.
Okay, zooming out.
Yeah.
The societal sleep deficit, it's a big deal.
Huge. The stats are alarming. Way more adults now sleep 6 hours or less compared to a century ago. The WHO calling it a global health epidemic really says something.
And it costs money. Affects work.
Yeah. Big economic costs for companies, lost productivity, more errors, absenteeism. It even impacts leadership effectiveness.
But some companies are catching on, offering sleep help.
Thankfully, yes. A positive shift away from that old, damaging sleeplessness equals success mindset. Recognizing good sleep is good business.
Good. The source also condemns sleep deprivation as torture.
Rightly so, forcefully. Emphasizes the devastating physical and mental impact, equating its long-term mortality effect to starvation. It's inhumane.
Absolutely. Turning to education. Those early high school start times seem really bad for teenagers.
They clash directly with adolescent biology. Teenagers' body clocks naturally shift later. They want to sleep later and wake later.
So forcing them up early causes problems.
Major problems. Chronic sleep deprivation, especially loss of REM sleep, is linked to poorer grades, lower SAT scores, more mood issues, higher mental health risks, even psychosis-like symptoms in some cases.
Wow. And sometimes sleep problems get misdiagnosed as ADHD.
There's growing evidence for that, yeah. Treating the underlying sleep issue can sometimes significantly improve attention and behavior.
We're setting them up to fail with those schedules.
Mhm.
And healthcare is another area with dangerous sleep deprivation.
Critically so. The long hours for medical residents, doctors, nurses, directly linked to more medical errors, diagnostic mistakes, even patient deaths.
That's terrifying.
The source notes that after 22 hours awake, performance is like being legally drunk. There's an urgent need to change that culture for patient safety.
Absolutely. The source ends with a call for a big shift in attitude towards sleep and looks to the future.
Yeah, passionately argues we need to stop seeing sleep as lazy or optional and recognize it's vital for everything. Sees potential in smart homes adjusting light and temp for our rhythms, personalized sleep medicine.
Even NASA's working on it for astronauts.
Right. Highlights the universal need, but also points out knowledge isn't always enough to change habits, suggests things like sleep trackers, digital nudges can help.
And better education is needed, and prioritizing sleep in healthcare.
Definitely. Lack of sleep education is a huge gap. And in medicine, recognizing sleep's role, like how lack of sleep increases pain sensitivity, so sleep could be a natural pain reliever, plus simple things to improve sleep in hospitals.
And it wraps up with that helpful list of practical tips.
Yeah, consistent schedule, watch exercise timing, avoid caffeine alcohol late, healthy meals, relax before bed, cool, dark, quiet room, get sunlight, don't lie awake in bed. Really actionable stuff.
It's a great summary of evidence-based strategies.
Things anyone can start doing to prioritize their sleep.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly illuminating. It's so clear from all this research. Sleep isn't just downtime.
Not at all.
It profoundly impacts our brains, our bodies, our emotions, even our society's productivity and safety.
It really touches everything.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given this overwhelming evidence, what's maybe one immediate, tangible change you could make in your own life to prioritize getting the sleep you actually need? Think about how this information challenges any beliefs you might have had about sleep, about productivity, about what's truly important for your well-being.
It's worth reflecting on.
And if this deep dive sparked more questions or areas you're curious about related to sleep, definitely let us know. It's clearly a topic with many more layers we could explore.
Always more to learn about sleep.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.